Behind every achievement, behind every moment people see, there's a story. The challenges, the lessons, the purpose, and of course, the impact. Welcome to Impact Play with Dr. J. Real stories, real conversations, real impact. Now, let's get into today's Impact Play. All right, welcome back to Impact Play with Dr. J, where we go beyond the titles, the accomplishments to discover the real stories, experiences, and the moments that really shape and create moments of impact. Today's guest is someone whose story represents resilience, compassion, and what can happen when one person decides their experiences will become a pathway to helping others. Holly Jackson is the founder of Walls of Love, an organization built around meeting people where they are and supporting and providing support during those times of need. Since 2018, Walls of Love has served more than 1.5 million people across 36 states, providing essential resources, including warming, weather gear, non-perishable food items, and hygiene products, school supplies, and support for individuals and families facing housing and food insecurities. During the holidays, Walls of Love has also supported veterans, nursing homes, families experiencing hardships, and even cancer units, bringing not just resources, but hope. Behind the organization is even a bigger story. Holly is a domestic violence survivor, sexual assault survivor, cancer survivor, advocate, ally, mother of 3, grandmother of 9, published author, and a Guinness World Record holder, y'all. So today we're talking about resilience, purpose, service, community, and how one person's story can create a movement. So Holly, welcome to Impact Play.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. Before we start talking about Walls of Love, I want to talk about, and before we get into all the numbers and everything that you've built, I always like to start with the person. So who is Holly Jackson?
Well, I'm just a Cleveland girl through and through, born and raised here. I love my city. I love the people, and I feel like, a lot of other cities, they disrespect us quite a bit.
They sure do.
Calling us the mistake by the lake, and, especially because sometimes our Browns, we can't get it together.
It's rough.
But I tell you, Cleveland has some of the most amazing people. The waterfront is excitingly, getting revamped, and businesses are coming to our city, and there's so much food. Food. If you're a foodie, this is the place to be.
Foodie. So how would the people closest to you really describe you?
I feel like they would tell you that I'm everybody's mother on some level. I grew up in a really extended family. My parents were foster parents, and, I had bonus siblings, and, we were always the people that would take in the additional kids. My friends who were, having issues maybe at home could always come to my house for a meal or a sleepover. And we were always bringing home pets. So we had our own, like little zoo in the back. So it was just a lot of fun, and just, a lot of love. A lot of love all over the place.
I love that. So I'm hearing, camaraderie, family experiences at home. So what other experiences do you feel like shaped you into the woman that you are today?
I feel that when I was younger, I was, and still am, although my father's deceased now, but I'm a military brat.
Okay.
So a lot of times with military, you just don't question the authority. You just do what you're told to do. And, having a very strict, parent, as well as a lot of kids in and out of the house all the time, there had to be structure, right?
Yeah.
But you also had to vie for attention, right? You have all these kids in the household, and everybody had different needs.
Sure.
My siblings played sports. I played sports, and I was in band, and, did a lot of did a lot of, clubs and that. So I think just always between that and church and giving back and, always volunteering, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, we were just very, very busy.
Mm,
But I was also very blessed to have two sets of grandparents who were in love and married over 50 years. And it
congrats.
was just, a true love story. So I think that I've just been an empath from the beginning
Mm-hmm.
and always wanted to be a do-gooder, always wanted to be a peacemaker, always wanted to facilitate change.
Love
And
that.
I think that that just has been with me my whole life. And, I was a rebel for a little while.
Oh, with a cause or
My own cause. And I think that, I was very lucky that even though everything I did wasn't always appropriate, that I was able to live that life, make those mistakes, have
mm-hmm.
opportunities to grow and change. And, redemption is in everybody,
Yes,
and
it is.
I feel that, kind of one of my favorite little quotes is every saint has a past, every sinner has a future. And it's very important to, let people grow. I
Yes.
feel like a lot of times in society, when things happen, people make mistakes, right? They're
Yeah.
human, they make bad choices. Maybe they, get involved in drugs or alcohol
Mhm.
or other things, but when people work really hard to change that, we need to let them
Yeah.
change.
Yeah.
We, as the outside people looking in, need to stop forcing them to be in a box,
Whew.
and we need to allow them to.
Yes. Yes. I mean, honestly, if we wanted the same space to grow, and if we wanted the same grace to be better than we were, why can't we grant that to other people? Your quote just did everything for me. So I'm going to start a Impact Play quote board because you said every sinner has a past. No, you said every saint has a past and every sinner has a future.
Absolutely.
Clock it, y'all. That was amazing. I love quotes. So I'm gonna put that out somewhere. So with all of that, what is something that people may not know about you?
Wow. I live my life in the spotlight, so that's kind of hard. I would say that, a lot of times people say that, you're so strong,
Mm,
that you're, adaptable, that you're a chameleon, that you're able to just, go with the flow.
yes.
But sometimes I'm tired. And
Yes.
I'm a big, huge advocate for mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I have had to teach myself is to be okay with saying no, and that no is definitely a complete sentence.
It sure is.
And sometimes you have to make sure that you're okay, right? Because I am an empath again. I love taking care of people, but I'm no good for other people. I'm no good for this journey. I'm no good for this nonprofit. I'm no good for my family, my friends, my community if I'm not okay.
Listen,
And I think
great.
sometimes we want to do so much, and I never want to tell people no. I don't.
No one.
And I just feel that sometimes when your body is telling you that's it, you
Yes.
need a break and you need
Yeah.
to take that break. And I learned that lesson the hard way. As a matter of fact, not too long ago with whatever was going on, with this sickness that's been going around for the past several months.
Yeah.
3 weeks, I was sick, I couldn't get better, I didn't have a voice, I'm coughing, and I tested negative for
Yes.
the flu and all of those things.
Yeah.
No COVID, no, but I just wasn't getting better, and it was just my body was just tired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, whatever the mysterious, whatever that was, we had it in our
Mhm.
household as well. And it also came at a time where it said, sit your butt down, friend. Like I literally was just like, oh, that's, everyone else was kind of bouncing back
Yeah,
and I wasn't bouncing. And I was just like, wait, what's going on here? But you can't cut a tree with a dull axe. You can't do the good work that you need to do when you're ran into the ground. And right, you're in the spotlight. We are role models, right? So we can't be out
right.
here laid out and expect people to follow what we're doing. And so kind of a good segue into that. Like when people hear about your accomplishments and what you've done with your organization and even being a Guinness holder, we're going to get to that because I'm real interested on what's with that all about. They get to see the success, but they don't know the journey, right? You have so openly shared about all the ways in which you've been a survivor. So if you are comfortable with sharing, how did those experiences shape who you are and how it's helped you support others?
A lot of times when you look at people, you don't know that journey.
Mm.
So, they don't see the things that you had to go through to get where you are. And, I used to be so embarrassed about the things that I had to go through as far as, being abused and, being just not present in the moment for my own life. And, I never realized in sharing those stories, that there were so many other people out there
Yes.
who dealt with abuse, dealt with, homelessness, dealt with, all kinds of, different things. And I think once I started sharing the stories, people would tell me that, you inspire me or you make me want to be a better person or, I never had any idea that you went through any of that.
Yeah.
And it was very humbling for me because I just was surviving to the best of my ability at the time that I was going through what I was going through. And I had no idea that years later we would turn this into something amazing for the communities that we go to.
Yes.
So to see that journey, I think I just never gave myself credit.
Mm.
Even now, people will talk about all of the accolades and all of the things and I have to stop them.
Yeah.
I say, it was my brainchild, true enough, it was my story, but I can't do this without other people. I'm only one
Yeah.
person. And
Yes.
so for Walls of Love, for me, it's never a me thing. It's always a we thing because I can't do this without the help of other people and their support and love.
Indeed. Honestly, I've been doing, I think we were chit chatting before we got on, and I was telling you I'm doing all these podcasts, and that has just been a theme where everybody's saying, hey, like, you cannot do this in the silo. We cannot make these things happen in the community by ourselves. Like, we need community. And I'm just hearing a reoccurring thing that I love because post COVID, I feel like we kind of all kind of retreated and we were kind of like in these little bubbles. And, how do you serve community without community? And so I love the fact that you brought that up and the humbleness about I was just trying to survive. And someone else is like, oh my gosh, how inspiring can that be? You know what I'm saying? So, like, just I love hearing the realness and keeping it all the way 100. People, say that to me all the time, like, oh, you're this and you're that. And I'm literally like, 2 seconds away from being a house coat and a cigarette, and you have no idea. And rollers
Right.
in my head.
Right.
Like, are you serious? But we need to be honest and we need to be more real about that so people can understand, like, it may look like we have it together, but we don't, but we're still striving and going for what we need to do. So, was there a moment when you realized, I don't just want to survive what happened to me? I want to use my story to help someone else.
I wouldn't say that it was an immediate thing. It was quite a time frame after I went through what I went through.
Mhm.
You know, what I do now out into the communities, I just used to do out of my car. I would
Mhm.
put stuff in Ziploc bags and, I would just hand them out the windows to people. And I told you, as we started talking before we started recording, I went to Cleveland State University and, I grew up on the east side off St. Clair and people are like, what? And then as I got older, when I was in high school, I graduated from school in Lorraine, but I would see all of these people who were needing help and I tried to do like root cause analysis, right? So you're kind to people, but then you have conversations and you have to ask people, how did you get here?
Yes.
Like what happened?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
one of the things with my platform is that I don't judge people.
Mhm.
I have family members who've been through things. I've been through things. I have friends that have been through things. And sometimes you can be the best person in the world, but life just happens. You love who you love, and nobody goes into a relationship or a marriage or whatever and says, "Oh, well, I'm gonna get divorced in a while," or "This person's gonna beat the tar out of me and throw me down 3 flights of steps when I'm 7 months pregnant," or, like all of these different things. So I genuinely believe that people are good. I just believe that sometimes bad things happen to even good people.
Yeah.
Some people cause their own situation. I mean, let's be real about that also
Right.
with the choices that they make. But I feel that, you have to get to the root of the story. So COVID was a big catalyst for a lot of things that happen because, people are seen at the side of the road. Maybe they're, asking for money or asking for food or whatever. And are there people who really aren't homeless or really in need? Of
Right.
course there are.
Mhm.
You know, are there people who are very wealthy who cheat on their taxes? Of course there
There
are.
are.
But you can't put everybody in a box, right? I don't want to be put in a box. I don't put other people in a box. But what I do is I want to talk to you. I want to know what's going on. And sometimes people don't want to talk. I mean, that's
That's fair. Yeah.
reality. Sometimes, they have addiction issues. Sometimes they have
Right.
mental health issues, but that doesn't make them less than.
No,
It just means that we have to love on them more. So
indeed.
you find the story, you find out what's going on. And there was a lot of people that they maybe came out of jail or prison. There were people who had house fires that lost everything, that didn't have the documents that they needed to go down and get TANF or food
Yeah.
stamps or
Yeah.
Medicaid. And without those documents or ID or those kind of things, you can't get assistance. That's the policy, that's the rules. So we're not going to circumvent what you have to do,
Right.
but we need to look outside the box and see what is it that we can do. So we also know that there's brick and mortar buildings, right? That there's plenty of organizations that work really hard to help
Yes.
people.
Yes.
But there's also time frames where maybe somebody can't catch the bus. They don't have bus tickets, or they don't have an interpreter. They don't speak English. Maybe they're deaf. Maybe they, don't have a way. So what can we do out in the community to get to people who need things? Well, this is where my epiphany came from. In 2018, I was, going down the road. It was actually Memphis in Old Brooklyn. And I saw a family that was walking in weather inappropriate clothing. It's snowing outside and they're in summerish type of clothes,
Oh my
Crocs
goodness.
with no socks,
Right.
very, very thin, hoodies or whatnot. Not something that you would be outside in if you were prepared for the weather.
For the weather. Mhm.
And, I asked them, did they need help? And, they were hungry. And so I'm not a proponent of giving people money, but I will
Same.
buy you food or
Food.
drinks or
Yeah.
whatever. And, got them some stuff. And I had some things in my trunk, some blankets and whatnot. And as I'm driving away, I just was having my life flash before my eyes because I've been there, right? I've been in that situation, and I just said, I wish there was a magic place, a magic wall, so to speak, where people could just come get what they need without judgment. 24 hours a day, easily accessible. And that's when the epiphany hit. That's when the light went off. And I was like, wow, well, let's call it Wall of Love. We're loving on the community, giving back.
Yes.
And I met a local business person who was moving in at the time. And I tell this story and it's really funny because I think people thought I was crazy.
Oh.
Because I said, introduced myself. Hi, my name is Holly Jackson. I have this really great idea. Can I use your fence outside? And this person
It's like,
looking at me
what are
like,
you
"What?"
talking
But he was like, "Come on in, have a cup of coffee, let's talk about it." And that was where we started.
So that first wall was on Memphis. So you remember that first wall. What did it consist of?
Hats and gloves and scarves and just some non-perishable type of food items like granola bars and things like that.
And it started with one business saying, yes, you can use my fence.
Yes. And then Fox 8 put it on the news. It went viral. And then I had people reaching out to me. They thought it was a great idea. I had a law firm help me really quickly get my nonprofit. I had
Good.
a marketing company, offer to help me with, doing my website and whatnot. And it was just really great. It was really great. And the more traction that we got, the more that we did. And then, we went through the state of Ohio. And then I thought, well, it'd be really cool if we did this somewhere else. And
Let's grow.
so now we've been to 36 different states. So I'm hoping by the end of 2027, we'll be in all 50 states.
That's phenomenal. So do you just reach out to people in each state and say, hey, could you partner with me on this? So how do you walk me through how you get it done in other states?
Well, it's kind of changed a little bit. So in the beginning, people were very skeptical, right? They didn't know anything about this. They hadn't heard anything about this. And I didn't have like a lot of media coverage. So there was no, I guess integrity or viability to what I was asking these people to do.
Gotcha.
So I would just go do it and beg for forgiveness.
Like, please, please, please. Mm. Okay. So for someone who has never experienced a wall of love, can you walk us through it? Like, what does someone see? What resources are available? And most importantly, what do you hope they feel?
Well, what goes up on the wall changes based upon the time of year, obviously. So, year round, we do hygiene products. So, toothbrushes, toothpaste, brushes, combs, soap, shampoo, conditioner, things like that. We also do non perishable food items. And one of the things that I try to do is make sure that there's some kind of protein up there. So whether it's a protein bar, Slim Jims, things like that. We try to be healthy, but sometimes we have to be fun as well because, a lot of times people aren't, getting that type of thing. And then we do socks, we do underwear, and then during the winter time, we do hats, gloves, scarves, hand warmers, toe warmers, things like that. When we're able, we do shoes, we do coats. We partnered with Turtle Fur several years ago.
Okay.
And every year they help us out by matching what we get. So say for instance we get 5,000 winter items, they send us, 5,000 winter items.
That's awesome.
And I have a huge, huge, huge shout out to Turtle Fur because they were actually part of our 1 millionth item that went up on the wall, and we met them up in the Northeast. So we were in Vermont up there, and it was beautiful. We were in Maine, and they're amazing, amazing, amazing people. They've been very supportive of Walls of Love from the beginning.
Period poverty is a thing as well. So do we have Walls of Love that are kind of centered around the ladies too?
We absolutely do. We do feminine hygiene products.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay. Mm-hmm.
that we started doing that, separately. So people didn't have to use them if they didn't want those kind of products.
Got you. So there's so much dignity and humanity behind the work that you're doing. Why is that important to you?
It is very important to me as a person because at one point in time, I was that person and I wasn't given that kindness or that respect or that dignity. Back then when I was going through what I was going through, I think that people just saw this pregnant person, and just assumed that maybe I had addiction or maybe I was somebody's concubine, for lack of a better
Oh,
explanation, or,
yes.
that I was promiscuous or whatever the case may be when that was actually the farthest thing from the truth. And
Mm,
I remember people treating me very poorly. So it is very important to me that when we do these things in the community and we have events that we treat people with kindness and
yes.
humility and respect.
Yes.
And you never know how quickly you could be in that same situation.
Listen,
And I think COVID taught all of us that, right?
I believe
You
so.
had companies who had been in business for years, 50, 60, 100 years, who were
Gone.
dealing with the same kind of, trauma that people who were never employed were dealing
Yes.
with. People
Yes.
who had been getting paychecks forever, lost their jobs, lost
Yeah.
their income, and were having to, scramble and figure out what to do for their family. And if there was anything that was good that came out of, that time frame, I think people started being more kind
I agree.
and people started being more accommodating and understanding.
Yes.
And then as we got better and recovered from COVID, unfortunately, people went back to being pre-COVID behavior. And,
Mm,
it's disheartening,
yes.
but I
Yes, it is.
think that also what you put into the universe is definitely what you get back.
I agree.
And when you go searching for negativity, you're always going to find it, right?
You
But
got it.
when you go searching for positivity and when you put love out into the universe, that's what you get back.
Exactly.
And, I go to some really seedy areas sometimes, really very difficult areas, very high crime. One of the sides of town that I go to in Cleveland, and I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I'll just say, when I go over there, the police department, they sponsor a wall for me every year and, tell me I can use their fence and
Nice.
whatnot.
Nice.
And they're like, "Would you like to be escorted outside with some officers
They're like, let's make sure you're
while
safe.
you're out there?" We don't even go out there without, our weapons and, whatnot. And I was like, "Absolutely not." No, I said, I, have the old adage and accolades from my grandma who used to say that, your higher power takes care of baby and fools. And I said, well, I must fall under one of those categories because I am blessed beyond measure, honest to goodness, and I am blessed far more than I ever deserve.
No,
So,
that's right. I think sometimes society sees the issues that you're dealing with, like homelessness and hardship, more so as a statistic versus then making it a human issue or humanizing what's happening to the folks. I remember one night we were walking in downtown Cleveland. Don't ask me why we were walking around downtown Cleveland, but me and and a few others. And we came across some homeless folks. And one man in particular, we were just having really good conversation with him. And to find out he was a homeless veteran. And really, he was just hungry. We walked to Jack's and shout out to Jack's for the best corned beef that there is in downtown Cleveland at all hours of the night. And we bought him a sandwich and we walked and we talked. And he was a very successful man and he lost everything almost like in a blink of an eye. And he lost his family. And just hearing his story, and after talking with him and walking with him and kind of going home, like we were like, that could happen to anybody. You have to see the person behind the circumstance.
Mhm.
You have to be able to see that these are human issues and not just a statistic. And so I really
Yeah.
appreciate I really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
I believe too, like, obviously systemic issues, they grow so quickly.
Yes.
And, this is where I say that I love my city so much. There's been a lot of groups that have really, really stepped up. University Hospital, my D9s, I love them so much.
Shout out. Whoop
The
whoop.
the the AKAs, the A5As, the Zetas, the Deltas, the Qs, and the other, Panhellenic, but the community, they're so great.
Yes.
There's a business. It's called Crust. I don't know if you're familiar, but they have 130th in St. Clair and
Okay.
then over in Tremont. And the gentleman that owns that pizza place over there, he has allowed me the space on his fencing for probably about the past 4 years. We go in there, we get pizza for the people that are out in the streets. And, being an alum of Cleveland State University and, doing my master's program there now in nonprofit management that I'm working on,
Good for you.
I deal with, the elementary school that's over there, the international school and the international high school, and they want to participate. They want to see what is going on in the world and how they're making a difference. In, Elyria, I deal with, the inner city youth there, and they want to give back because their friends are, in need, and they feel like they're doing something. And I think that a lot of times the kids these days that are growing up, they're growing up way too fast, right?
I
They're
agree.
they're being they're being put in very uncomfortable situations. And sometimes I think, we give them the side eye about things that they say or the little lingo that they use or whatever. But I say invest in these kids
Yes.
and invest and educate them on how they can make a difference in the world, because someday they're going to be taking care of us, right? So
Indeed.
we want to each one teach one, and give them the okay to dream big. You
Yes.
can live in a very impoverished city or section of town, but that doesn't mean that you can't grow up and be the next astronaut or bioscientist
Mhm.
or president of the United States or whatever the case may be. And I think that a lot of times we don't give these kids enough credit because
I
they're
agree.
amazing.
I agree with that. I mean, being an educator myself, being in the schools and then watching kind of the matriculation of the next generation, they're phenomenal and we need to speak life into them. No, we may not understand all their ways,
Right.
but we need to speak life into them, and we need to pour into them and set the next generation up to take care of us as you so eloquently put that. I want to know, is there one story or one person that you have helped or Walls of Love has been able to bless that you will never forget?
There's so many.
I bet.
Honestly, there's so many. One story that I'll share, it was in relation to a homeless vet that we had downtown. And, one of the walls that I did was across from Cleveland State, where
Mhm.
Cafe Aroma is, over there where the church and
Oh,
and the
yeah.
fencing is there. And there was a man who, he saw me putting up the wall, and he just kept like staring at me.
Mhm.
And, sometimes maybe that would like creep people out, but I just thought maybe he was interested, in what I was doing.
Right.
And, I was working for a little while, and I turned around and I spoke to him. I was like, "Hey, how are you?" And he was really down and very sad. And, we talked, and long story short, he was looking for a way out. He was looking that day for a
Goodness.
way to leave this place.
My goodness.
And, him bumping into me and just getting some basic necessities and things that, he needed.
Right.
It really it really resonated with me, the fact that somebody wanted to leave this place over some hygiene, over some socks, over
Mhm.
some
Mhm.
clothing, because they felt not enough, not worthy, and people were so mean-spirited in their comments,
Jeez.
and it broke me. It really broke me, and I think one of the reasons why I just advocate for veterans so hard
Mhm.
is, 1, being a military brat, but 2, it really bothers me that somebody who at one point in time of their life signed a blank check to take care of us and care for us and make sure we were safe and worried about things that we luckily will never have to see.
Right. Right.
Why are they going without? Why are they just in need? And it really bothered me. And so I work extra hard for the veterans.
I
And
know.
don't get me wrong, I am in no way, shape, or form saying anything negative about the veteran services, because there's a lot of amazing services
Of course.
out there.
Of course.
But the need is so great.
Yes.
The need And even now, outside of the veterans, the need is so great just in general, that we have become very creative at Walls of Love in trying to do different things to, serve more people. So I collaborate with other organizations as much as possible. I
Mhm.
collaborate with other businesses as much as possible to make our outreach bigger, to be able to serve more people and combine monies, combine efforts, combine things in order to continue to do that. So for the small little things that we did in the beginning with just, hygiene products and warm weather gear has now evolved into school supplies. It's evolved into Angel Tree. It's evolved into adopting
Angel
nursing
tree.
homes
Yeah.
and adopting Ronald McDonald House and the cancer units. And, in the fall during the holidays, we
Mhm.
collect teddy bears and we make things. I'm corny. So I always think that there needs to be something important for correlation. So we make the holidays bearable for the kids in the hospital. So we give them blankets and bears and things like that. The same
Mhm.
thing for the
Mhm.
nursing homes. There's a lot of people that don't have family,
Right.
or, for whatever reason, they are not able to get visitors or things like that. So we make sure that we take care of the nursing homes. I also take care of dementia units. My father passed away. He had dementia. So that's near and dear to my heart.
Mhm.
But just knowing that you can change somebody's life with something so small and so simple and something that we take for granted every day,
Yes.
that we can do this, and we can make amazing things happen one
Mhm.
community at a time, and it only takes one small idea.
That's it. That's it. I think too, like people love to hear the word impact. They love the stuff on the sunny side, right? Once everybody has been served, but it requires sacrifice. And so you've talked a lot about all the people that you serve and all the partnerships that you have been a part of. But what has building Walls of Love required from you personally?
Time.
Mm-hmm.
Time away from my family, time away from, my friends, time away from sleeping. I a lot of times people don't know that, they think when you have a nonprofit that that's all you do, or they think
And
that you get paid. I don't get paid. No
no.
one that works with me gets paid. Everything is volunteer.
Mm.
So I work, 50 or 60 hours a week at my regular job. And then I do Walls of Love about another 30 to 40 hours a week. So I sleep about 3 hours a day.
Tell the people now.
And I've been doing this for years now, and I think my body's just used to it, but I'm an adrenaline junkie. So, to me, this is therapy, and the adrenaline, knowing that you're gonna, change somebody's life, or, make their, holiday better, or they're gonna have food, or they're gonna have
Yeah.
school
Yes.
supplies.
Yeah.
It's adrenaline, and I live on that, and coffee and chaos too, but it's
Spoken
just
like a
great
tr
to know.
like I said, spoken like a true nonprofit leader. And we
Yes.
all miss sleep. And we know the sacrifice of being away from our families, but also ultimately we hope our families see what we're sacrificing and what is it doing for our community. And,
Well, I think too that a lot of times people don't see the monetary value behind it, right? So
Mhm.
you fundraise all the time, especially I don't have a grant writer. That
Mhm.
is the one area that I'm lacking, and I try to be better, which is why I'm doing what I do now, so I can learn how to do all of those things.
yes.
But the time frame in which everything just went viral and went crazy, like, I didn't have time to stop and worry about all of those other things. You just go with it, right? You live in the moment. So, one of the things that, it's like being a teacher, right? When you don't have all the school supplies that you need for your classroom, you're purchasing it out of
Yes.
pocket.
Out of pocket.
So the same thing happens here. If we don't have the money or, we haven't raised enough, I pay for it out of my own pocket.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm lucky that the job that I do, we get bonuses and things like that. So most of the time I
Right.
dedicate that
Good.
towards it, but I'm always fundraising.
Spoken as a nonprofit leader.
But the other thing too that I feel that I give back to the community is transparency.
Yes.
So I want people to see what it is that they're doing, and if you see my website, you see it. If you see my socials, you see it. The walls that go up, the constant thank yous and
Yeah.
appreciation and
Yeah.
accolades for other people, because I want you to see where your money is going. I want you to see what it is that we're doing, not because you don't believe me, but
Yes.
because the feel good behind it, the lives that we're changing, it's
Yes.
amazing. And they're
Yes.
so thankful.
It's really warming my heart. And I'm thinking about right now how I can get involved with Walls of Love for sure, for sure. I know some groups. Shout out to the lovely ladies of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, because I know we have done some walls. But I really want to encourage listeners to get involved, because that adrenaline, that feeling that she's talking about is unmatched. And so that's something that we can't really even describe. So I'm going to put a charge on the listeners to get involved so that they can feel exactly what you're talking about. I have to ask though, because I've been kind of itching to ask you about this Guinness World Record holder business
Okay.
that I read. And so how does something like that even happen? Do tell us the story real quick.
When I first started, I'm a little bit extra. So, they as the kids say these days, just because I feel that what we do is so important. So I wanted to always find a way to up my game, up my game, up my game. So it went from having local walls to having walls in the state to having, across the US, to partnerships to whatnot. And so you become patented, you become trademarked, you become,
Right.
nonprofit federally, all
Mhm.
of these things. And it's like, okay, so what's next? What's next? So we get to our 1,000th wall, then we get to our 1,500th wall, then we get to our 1 millionth bag. And I'm like, gosh, like, how am I gonna, up my game with this? I was like, you know what? I want to break a Guinness Book of World Records. And it took me a little while to do it because, it's something that's not free. So
Okay.
you either have to fundraise enormously or
Mhm.
you have to find a sponsor. So
Okay.
I will tell you, it's no secret. You can look it up. To break a Guinness Book of World Records, minimum is 10,000.
Wait, what?
It's $10,000 minimum, and that's not having a judge come. So if you have the judge come to
Mhm.
where they're on site and whatnot, I believe it's an additional 7,500, and that includes their flight and this, that, and the other.
Oh my goodness.
And so I said to myself, well, Holly, that's a nice dream, but based on what I do, I can't sanction this. I can't justify spending that kind of money when I'm helping people. I can help 10,000 people. You
Exactly.
know what I mean? So
Exactly.
I was very blessed that the company that I work for, they paid the fee because they believe in what I do. They see how hard I work.
Wow.
So I partnered with a lot of different people, and you have to submit and get approval. And the first time I submitted, I didn't get approval. They wanted me to do something different than what I wanted to do. And they wanted it to tie into what we do.
Okay.
So I said, okay, great. Well, let's collect socks. We need socks. And, I did eventually get the approval for that. Now, the trick behind this was that when you're signing the contract, even though I'm a nonprofit, anything that we collected, we didn't get to keep any of it. We had to give it away. We had to donate it to the community, a nonprofit, whatnot. So I'm like,
Wow.
okay, well, how is that helping me?
Right.
Because we're doing this,
Right.
And I said, no, that's epiphany number 2. Like, this is for the greater good. This
Indeed.
is for the world. This is for the community. This is for look how many people we're going to be able to help. And so I was never upset about that at all. And like I said, my friend that owns Crust, he let us use his parking lot. We did have to plan it really well. We made it kind of like a drive-through,
Okay.
put it out, with the media, with the radio stations, TV and whatnot, invite people to come down. So Guinness gives you the record that you have to break. So we had to collect 2,500 pairs of socks or more in 1 hour. Well, let me tell you, your girl hustled with her team. And in 1 hour, with the amazing people that we have in this city, we collected 17,715 pairs of socks in 1 hour. It took us longer to count the socks. It took
Then
us
to collect-
hours to count the socks than it did to collect them. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Was this? It was Cleveland, right? This is Cleveland.
Yes.
Shout out City of Cleveland on
So
coming
we had
through.
people from Cleveland, Lorain, Elyria, Amherst. We had people from Columbus. We had people
Ohio.
from Lake County, and they just thought that it was so amazing. And
Wow.
I am forever thankful, because what we were able to accomplish in all of that, we were able to help over 54 different nonprofits and entities by donating all of those socks. So of course we donated to the veterans, we donated to Ronald McDonald House, we donated, to the hospitals and all, but some of the little small, nonprofits and charities and things like that, we were able to donate to. And it felt so good. It felt amazing to be able to just do things with the people here in our city.
That's such a blessed situation. Just shout out to Northeast Ohio for doing or Ohio in general for doing their thing. And now we got a Guinness record to be proud about. So you have several major things happening. I believe you have a shoe collection event going on.
We do. So I have a couple of challenges that I would like to put out there.
Let's go.
All right. So the first one is through the end of June. You can go to Walls of Love's Facebook page. We are doing Krispy Kreme donuts. So you can purchase donuts. There's no expiration date on there for those coupons, and you can use them anywhere in the United States. The second thing, I don't know if you can see behind me, these amazing blankets.
Ooh.
You can purchase blankets either for yourself or to donate to. There's 2 different types. That is also there. From currently right now until July 15th, we are collecting shoes of all kinds, new and gently used, men's, women's, children's, cleats, flip-flops. The only thing we're not doing is like roller skates or anything.
Okay.
Consider it like this. Part of my manifesto and rules are, if I wouldn't give it to my family or my friends, I wouldn't give it to you.
Gotcha.
So we just ask to please keep that in mind. If you would like to donate to us, we will have collection boxes. We are actually finishing up some businesses, locations where we're allowed to have drop-offs.
Yes.
We can also do some pickups and things like that. So that will be done by the 21st. So that information will be available on our socials. And then we are also collecting school supplies, and we are looking for businesses, entities, churches, other people who may be personally invested or interested in sponsoring a wall of love for our 8-year anniversary, which is going to be November 1st.
Whoop, whoop.
We are looking to put up 100 walls of love the same day across the US. So it's $500 to sponsor the wall, and everything that goes up on the wall is included in that price. We are a legitimate 501c3, so it is tax deductible.
Yes.
So we will happily, make sure that you get receipts for that. We are looking for all of that to be done by August 15th. So we're looking for that. If you need a little bit more time, please just, contact me. But please follow our socials, watch what we do. Only do we do things here in Cleveland. We are looking to expand across the US. There's still several states that we haven't hit yet. There's 14 states that we're still looking for. So we're looking for spaces, places, people to assist us with that. And if you have any idea that you would like to collaborate, if you have a business that you work for that has corporate responsibility or volunteer hours or things that you'd like to do, please come join.
I'm so excited that you gave them some good call to action. I'm going to get all that information and put that in the show notes as well so that you can go back and review it. Holly, one of the reasons why I wanted you on Impact Play is because this platform is not about just telling a story. It's about connecting people to people who are doing meaningful work. For someone watching this or listening to the conversation who says, I truly believe in this mission, I want to help, where would they start? Is the website the best place to start?
Yes, go directly to our website. There is a place where you can donate directly there. So we have Venmo, PayPal, Zelle. You can go right directly there. You can also feel free to send us a text message, send us an email. All of those avenues are there. I will tell people that most of the time I accept calls or texts from 7 a.m. until midnight because I deal with East Coast, West Coast, and, overseas. There are a lot of different ways that we would love to partner. So if you have some ideas, I'm all for it.
Well, so people can follow you. We got the website. Give them your social media as well and your contact information.
Sure. So for social media on Facebook, you can follow us at Walls of Love there. Our Instagram is walls_of_love. Our X is at Walls of Love 1, and our TikTok is Walls of Love 216. And then our email is wallsoflove216@gmail.com.
I know. That's so good. One word we talk about a lot on Impact Play is legacy. So when people hear the name Holly Jackson years from now, what do you hope they remember?
One of the things that I hope that they remember is how my service to the world made them feel. I don't care about just being remembered as Holly Jackson, the author, or Holly Jackson, the Walls of Love person. I want them to know that I think that I'm no better than anyone else. I'm no higher than anyone else. But I love my city and I love the people here. And I absolutely love love. So when you can choose to be anything in the world that you want to be, always choose to be kind.
At Impact Play, we believe that the biggest plays don't always happen in front of the crowd, and sometimes that they happen in everyday moments when you're changing a life, creating an opportunity, and helping someone believe again. So I asked every guest, what has been your greatest impact play?
Wow. I have to say that it's not Walls of Love. It's being a mom. I truly believe that, as a parent, we have a responsibility, and we have a responsibility to not only talk about things that we need to talk about, but to act on those things. And I want my kids to be proud of their mom. And I want my kids to be able to say someday that my mom didn't just say she was going to do it. She actually did it. And
Mhm.
I lead them by example. And sometimes that example is not easy. Sometimes it's hard.
Mhm.
Really quickly, I know we're wrapping up, but let me just kind of bring this point home. So, my oldest two kids, their father was my abuser. And 2 years ago, he passed away. And towards the end of his life, we had made peace to a certain degree, because being angry and having disdain, and I won't say I hate anybody, but having extreme
Yes.
disdain in your heart, it's very, very taxing.
Mm.
And I told my kids, that forgiveness, it is a choice, but it also it's not for the people that hurt us, right? It's for us to
Mhm.
be able to move on. And when my kid's father passed away, I was the first person that my kids called. And the fact that my kids knew everything that I had been through and knew the trauma that I lived through, the fact that as a parent that I made them feel safe enough
Yes.
regardless of the situation, for them to be able to call me and say, "Mommy, I can't do this without you. I need your help. Can
Yes.
you help us, get the stuff together for dad and to bury him?" And, I was honestly a little bit taken aback just with the
Yeah.
the situation,
Yeah.
but I said to my kids, as they thanked me later on for being there no matter what,
Mhm.
I said
Mhm.
to them that one of the things that I wanna leave you with is the fact that my love for you far exceeded any dislike, disdain, or hate that I ever had for him.
Mm.
And I wanted them to know that there is redemption,
Yes.
there is forgiveness, and there is peace after the things that you go through. You just have to be there and live in that moment.
That's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. And I feel that as a mom, they call you to a greater part of yourself, version of yourself, that you got to actually show up and like you're teaching them all these great idioms, but you have to follow them, right? For it to stick and actually mean and matter to them. Well done. I just absolutely love everything. You just made me feel all warm and fuzzy on the inside. And I can't wait to personally get started with walls of love for myself. I hear and I feel in my soul a wall of love sponsored by Impact Play, because this is something that it seems small, but it's so huge. And I just would love to support what you have going on. So I really just want to thank you, Holly, for joining Impact Play and trusting us with your story. Thank you for not only sharing what you've built, but also talking about that journey and the purpose and who you are. For everyone watching and listening, please connect with Holly and support the work happening through Walls of Love. We will include all that information on how you can volunteer, donate, partner, become part of how to support this critical mission. So, again, thank you for joining another
Oh, thank you for
episode.
having me. I'm so honored and so humbled that so many people think what I do is so amazing.
Your name came
That
up so
means
many times.
it means a lot. It really does mean a lot. And, please keep in mind that the importance of being kind and the importance of giving grace to people, but also keep in mind that small things matter.
Mm.
And you can have the smallest idea, but you never know how much of a change that you can make with it. So please join us. I invite all of you to please
Yes.
get involved. And if you can't get involved, or, you still think it's a good idea, please share it. We shares and likes are important too. So we
Yes.
appreciate you.
Indeed. Y'all heard that. She gave you the call to action now. So I don't even have to say it. But all I want to do is say to the listeners, thank you for joining Impact Play with Dr. J. If this conversation inspired you or made you think of someone who needs to hear it, please share it. And also follow, subscribe, and continue to help us highlight the real stories, the real people that make the real impact. And until next time, you already know, keep creating that impact.